Donovan had always believed in order. As a former military intelligence officer turned private security consultant, he'd built his life around structure, loyalty, and preparation. His sprawling Connecticut home, with its manicured lawn and state-of-the-art security system, reflected the control he maintained over his environment. But what good were perimeter sensors when the threat lived inside your own walls? The January air stung his face as he stood watching his 12-year-old daughter Lily through the hospital window. She was sleeping, tubes running into her thin arms, her once vibrant curls now sparse from months of aggressive leukemia treatments. Max pressed his palm against the cold glass, the wedding band on his finger catching the fluorescent light. 15 years of marriage to Veronica, and now this betrayal. Mr. Donovan? Dr. Patterson approached with clipboard in hand. We should discuss the next phase of Lily's treatment plan. Max nodded, his steel blue eyes never leaving his daughter. Whatever it takes, doctor. Money is no object. The experimental immunotherapy has shown promising results in similar cases, but I should warn you that insurance typically classifies this as. I don't care about insurance classifications, Max interrupted. My security firm just landed 3 major contracts. We have the funds. Dr. Patterson nodded. Very well. Let's schedule the consultation for next week. Is your wife joining us? The question hit like a strike. Veronica had stopped coming to these consultations 2 months ago, claiming the emotional toll was too great. Max had believed her. She's handling things differently, was all he offered. After the doctor left, Max settled into the chair beside Lily's bed, reaching for her frail hand. She stirred, her eyes, identical to his, fluttering open. Daddy. Her voice was barely audible. I'm here, sweetheart. He smiled, masking the storm brewing inside him. Is Mom coming today? Max swallowed hard. She's busy with her yoga training, remember? She's becoming an instructor. Lily nodded weakly. She said it's helping her cope. Max stroked her forehead, remembering how just yesterday he'd come to the hospital earlier than expected. He'd been about to enter Lily's room when he heard Veronica's voice, unusually sharp. Honey, these treatments are draining our accounts. Your father doesn't see it, but we need to be practical. Veronica had leaned closer to Lily's bed. Stop wasting Daddy's money on treatments. It's pointless. Max had frozen, disbelief paralyzing him as his daughter began to cry. But Dr. Patterson says there's a chance with the new therapy, Lily had whispered. Doctors always say that. They just want more money. Veronica had checked her watch. I have to go. My yoga class starts in 30 minutes. Max had ducked into a nearby supply closet, his world crumbling around him. The woman who'd spoken those words couldn't be the same woman who'd once held their newborn daughter with tears of joy streaming down her face. Now, watching Lily drift back to sleep, Max made a silent vow. He would discover the truth, whatever it was. And if Veronica was betraying their daughter, betraying their family, there would be consequences. That evening, Max returned home to find Veronica in their bedroom, packing a small overnight bag. Yoga retreat this weekend? He asked, his tone carefully neutral. Veronica barely looked up, tucking her honey blonde hair behind her ear. Advanced training certification. I told you last week. Had she? Max couldn't remember. The past few months had blurred together in a haze of hospital visits and business meetings. When will you be back? Sunday evening. She zipped the bag closed. How's Lily? Fighting, Max replied, studying his wife's face for any sign of genuine concern. Dr. Patterson wants to discuss a new treatment option. Veronica's shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly. More treatments? Max, at what point do we accept that? Accept what, Veronica? His voice was dangerously quiet. She met his gaze, then looked away. Nothing. I'm just tired. She picked up her bag. I should get going. Traffic will be bad. Max nodded, watching her leave. Once he heard her car pull out of the driveway, he sat on the edge of their bed, contemplating his next move. 20 years of intelligence work had taught him to trust his instincts. And right now, every instinct was screaming that something was very, very wrong. He picked up Veronica's tablet from her nightstand. She'd always been careless with her devices, a fact he'd found endearing in the past. Now he was counting on it. The passcode hadn't changed since Lily's birthday 4 years ago. What he found shattered any remaining doubt. Emails between Veronica and someone named Drew. Romantic messages. Plans for a future together. And most damning of all, discussions about Lily's life insurance policy. a policy Max hadn't even known existed. 2 million once it's over, Veronica had written. Enough for that villa in Santorini we talked about. Max's blood turned to ice in his veins. He documented everything, transferring files to his secure cloud storage. Then he called the one person he knew could help, Benjamin Reeves, his former military colleague who now worked as a private investigator. Ben, I need surveillance on my wife. Immediately. Chapter 2. The Investigation. Benjamin Reeves parked his inconspicuous sedan 2 blocks from the Lotus Blossom Yoga Studio in downtown Greenwich. The luxury establishment, with its Sanskrit signage and valet parking, catered to the area's wealthy elite. Through his camera lens, he watched Veronica Donovan exit the building, but instead of heading to her car, she walked 3 blocks to an upscale hotel. Got you, Ben muttered, following at a safe distance. For 3 days, Ben tracked Veronica's movements, compiling photos, video, and location data. What emerged wasn't just the story of an affair, it was something far more sinister. Meanwhile, Max immersed himself in research, piecing together a disturbing pattern. The life insurance policy on Lily had been taken out 6 months after her diagnosis, with a rare provision that covered experimental treatments but paid out even if those treatments were ongoing at time of death. It had been designed to maximize potential payout while minimizing treatment time. More troubling were the financial irregularities he discovered. Withdrawals from their joint accounts, credit cards he didn't recognize, and most disturbing of all, evidence that Veronica had been in contact with a known insurance fraudster named Lawrence Mercer 3 months before Lily's diagnosis. Maxwell's private office became a war room, walls covered with timelines and connections. His security background gave him access to resources most people couldn't imagine, and he leveraged every contact. The lover's name is Andrew Drew Callahan, Ben reported during their secure video call. 42, divorce attorney who specialized in hiding assets before transitioning to insurance law 5 years ago. He met Veronica at a charity gala last year, right around when Lily first started showing symptoms. Max's expression remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped his desk. There's more, Ben continued. I followed them to a meeting with a man named Victor Orloff, former medical examiner with a suspended license, known for helping people time deaths for insurance purposes. They're planning to accelerate Lily's death, Max said, the words burning his throat. It looks that way, but we need concrete proof before involving authorities. Max nodded, his mind already formulating a strategy. Continue surveillance. I want everything. And Ben, find out who else they've done this to. That night, Max sat beside Lily's hospital bed, reading her favorite fantasy novel as she drifted in and out of sleep. The rage inside him had crystallized into something cold and focused, a precision instrument rather than a wild fire. Daddy, Lily's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Yes, sweetheart. Am I going to die? The question pierced him like a physical wound. Max set the book down and took her hand. Not if I have anything to say about it, he promised. The doctors have a new treatment they want to try. Lily nodded, but her eyes held too much wisdom for a 12-year-old. Mom says sometimes we have to accept things. Max leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. Your mother is wrong. We never stop fighting for the people we love. Never. Do you understand? A small smile touched Lily's lips. Like in the book, the night never gave up, even when everyone said the dragon was too strong. Exactly like that. Max kissed her forehead. Now get some rest. I'll be here when you wake up. After Lily fell asleep, Max stepped into the hallway to take a call from Ben. We've got something, Ben said without preamble. A witness. Former nurse who worked with Orloff. Says your wife and Callahan have done this before. Max's pulse quickened. Where? Boston, 3 years ago. Phoenix before that. They find wealthy families with terminally ill members, insert themselves into their lives, and manipulate the situation for insurance payouts. And Veronica? How long has she been involved? From what I can piece together, she met Callahan in Phoenix 5 years ago. She was working as a pharmaceutical sales rep then, under the name Veronica Mills. Mills, Max repeated, the name unfamiliar yet triggering a distant memory. She told me her maiden name was Chambers. It wasn't. She's created multiple identities. The woman you married doesn't exist, Max. The revelation should have devastated him. Instead, it only strengthened his resolve. Get me everything on their previous victims. And find this nurse. I want to talk to her personally. As Max ended the call, he noticed Dr. Patterson approaching with an unusual spring in his step. Mr. Donovan, I have incredible news. Lily's latest blood work shows a significant improvement. It's still early, but it appears her body is responding to the current treatment regimen. For the first time in months, hope flickered in Max's chest. She's getting better? I wouldn't go that far yet, but it's a very positive indicator. If this continues, we might not need the experimental therapy after all. Max nodded, thoughts racing. If Lily improved, the insurance policy wouldn't pay out, which meant Veronica and Drew would be getting desperate. When is my wife due for her next visit? Max asked. Tomorrow afternoon. She scheduled a private consultation to discuss Lily's care options. I see, Max said, his mind already formulating a plan. Thank you, doctor. That night, Max didn't return home. Instead, he worked from his downtown office, making calls and preparing. When morning came, he drove to the estate of Judge Harold Montgomery, one of his firm's most valued clients and a man who owed Max a significant favor. What you're asking is extremely unorthodox, the judge said after hearing Max's request. I understand, Your Honor, but my daughter's life is at stake. The judge studied him for a long moment. Bring me concrete evidence, and I'll sign the warrants myself. With the judge's provisional support secured, Max made his final preparations. Tomorrow, when Veronica arrived for her consultation, everything would be ready. Chapter 3. The trap is set. The morning of Veronica's hospital visit dawned bright and cold. Max stood in Lily's private room, adjusting the nearly invisible surveillance equipment Ben had installed overnight. Everything had to be perfect. Are you sure about this? Ben asked, testing the audio feed on his tablet. Once we start, there's no going back. Max watched his daughter sleeping peacefully, her vital signs stronger than they'd been in weeks. They were going to kill my daughter, Ben. Not directly, perhaps, but by denying her treatment, rushing her death. There's no line I won't cross to protect her. Ben nodded, understanding all too well. They'd served together in places where conventional morality had no meaning, where you did what was necessary to protect your own. The devices are set, Ben confirmed. Every word will be recorded. Detective Rivera will be monitoring from the security office. Detective Sofia Rivera was another piece of Max's carefully constructed plan. A veteran of the insurance fraud division with an impeccable record, she'd been initially skeptical of Max's claims, but had agreed to investigate after seeing the preliminary evidence. What about Callahan? Max asked. Our sources confirm he's checked into the hotel across the street. He'll be close enough to monitor the situation, but far enough to maintain deniability. Classic handler protocol. Max checked his watch. Veronica will be here in 3 hours. Let's go through it one more time. The plan was precise. Dr. Patterson would inform Veronica of Lily's improvement and recommend continuing the current treatment. Based on their surveillance of previous conversations between Veronica and Drew, they anticipated she would push back, revealing her true intentions in the process. What Veronica wouldn't know was that her conversation would be recorded, Detective Rivera would be watching, and Max would be waiting to confront her with the evidence of her previous insurance scams. As the appointed hour approached, Max kissed Lily's forehead and slipped out to take his position in an adjacent room that had been set up with monitoring equipment. Ben stationed himself in the hospital lobby, ready to intercept Drew if he attempted to enter the building. At precisely 2:30 p.m., Veronica arrived, dressed immaculately in a designer pantsuit, her face composed in an expression of maternal concern. Max watched through the monitors as she greeted Dr. Patterson with practiced warmth. Mrs. Donovan, thank you for coming, Dr. Patterson said, following the script they had prepared. I have some news about Lily's condition. Is she worse? Veronica asked, a hint of something, anticipation, in her voice. Actually, quite the opposite. We're seeing significant improvement in her latest blood work. The current treatment appears to be working. Max watched as a flash of dismay crossed Veronica's features before she composed herself. That's wonderful news. But I'm concerned about getting our hopes up too soon. Of course, we need to be cautious, Dr. Patterson agreed. But this development means we should definitely continue the current protocol. And the timeline? Veronica asked, her voice carefully modulated. How long do you expect this treatment to continue? If things progress as they are now, we could be looking at months, possibly years of maintenance therapy. Veronica's facade cracked slightly. Years? Doctor, you have to understand the financial burden. Your husband assured me that finances weren't a concern. Maxwell doesn't always see things clearly where Lily is concerned, Veronica said, her tone hardening. The insurance coverage has limitations, and these treatments are draining resources that could be put toward ensuring Lily's quality of life rather than just prolonging. She stopped abruptly as her phone chimed. Max watched as she checked the message, her expression changing subtly. Drew was communicating with her. I need to step out for a moment, Veronica said, rising. Please excuse me. As she left the room, Max signaled to Ben through their secure channel. She's moving, probably to rendezvous with Drew. I've got eyes on her, Ben confirmed. She's heading toward the east exit. Max switched to the hospital's security feed, watching as Veronica exited the building and crossed to the hotel. This was an unexpected deviation, but not entirely surprising. They had contingencies in place. Rivera, Max spoke into his comm, they're meeting at the hotel. Move to position B. Copy that, the detective's voice replied. Moving now. Max left the monitoring room and made his way through the hospital's service corridors, emerging near the hotel entrance just in time to see Veronica disappear inside. He followed at a discreet distance, tracking her to the hotel bar where a man in an expensive suit waited. Drew Callahan was younger than Max had expected, with the polished good looks of someone accustomed to charming his way through life. Max positioned himself at the far end of the bar, using a specialized directional microphone to pick up their conversation. Telling me the kid is getting better? Drew was saying, his voice tense. It's a temporary improvement, Veronica dismissed. But it complicates things. If she's responding to treatment, the payout timeline gets extended indefinitely. We can't wait indefinitely. The Santorini property won't stay on the market, and we've already put down a deposit. I know that, Veronica snapped. We need to adjust the plan. What did you tell the doctor? I started laying groundwork for financial concerns, but he shut it down. Max has apparently given him carte blanche on treatment costs. Drew swirled his drink thoughtfully. Then we accelerate. Contact Orloff. Tell him we need the alternate solution we discussed. Veronica hesitated. That's riskier. If there's an autopsy. There won't be. Not if we do it right. Drew reached across the table, taking her hand. Think about it, Ronnie. 2 weeks from now, we'll be watching the sunset from our villa, 2 million richer and finally free to start our life together. Max had heard enough. He signaled Rivera, who had positioned herself nearby. Move in. What happened next unfolded with military precision. Detective Rivera approached the table, badge displayed. Mr. Callahan, Mrs. Donovan, I'm Detective Sophia Rivera with the Insurance Fraud Division. I need you both to come with me. The shock on their faces was almost worth everything Max had endured. As Rivera began reading them their rights, Max stepped forward, finally revealing himself. Maxwell, Veronica gasped, her face draining of color. What is this? Justice, Max replied simply. For Lily, and for all your other victims. Drew recovered first, his lawyer instincts kicking in. This is absurd. You have nothing on us. Actually, Max said, nodding to Rivera who produced a tablet, we have everything. Your conversations with Victor Orloff. Your previous victims in Boston and Phoenix. The nurse who provided testimony about your methods. And now, this charming conversation about accelerating my daughter's death. Veronica's composure cracked completely. Max, you don't understand. I never would have hurt Lily. I was just playing along with Drew's plan too. Save it for your lawyer, Rivera interrupted, gesturing to the uniformed officers who had arrived. Take them in. As they were led away, Drew turned back to Max, his expression venomous. This isn't over, Donovan. People like me don't stay locked up for long. Max met his gaze steadily. For your sake, I hope you're wrong. Because if you ever come near my family again, prison will seem like a vacation resort compared to what I'll do to you. Once they were gone, Max felt a strange emptiness. The adrenaline that had fueled him for days dissipated, leaving behind exhaustion and a hollow victory. His marriage was a lie. The mother of his child was a predator. But Lily was alive, improving, and now safe from those who should have protected her most. He returned to the hospital, taking his place beside Lily's bed. There would be questions to answer, legal proceedings to navigate, a new life to build. But for now, all that mattered was the gentle rise and fall of his daughter's chest and the knowledge that he had kept his promise to fight for her, no matter what. As night fell, Dr. Patterson stopped by with updated test results. Her numbers are continuing to improve, Mr. Donovan. I don't want to use the word miraculous, but… Thank you, Doctor, Max said, genuine gratitude in his voice. For everything. After the doctor left, Max gazed out the window at the city lights. Phase 1 of his plan had succeeded. Veronica and Drew were in custody, facing serious charges. But Max knew better than most that people with resources and connections could slip through the justice system's cracks, which was why he had already begun planning Phase 2, the insurance policy against his insurance policy. Because if there was one thing Maxwell Donovan understood, it was that true security came not from trust, but from preparation. He pulled out his phone and sent a short message to Ben. Begin Phase 2. Chapter 4. The Aftermath. 3 months after Veronica and Drew's arrest, Max sat in the sunroom of his Connecticut home, watching Lily sketch in her art pad. Her recovery had been nothing short of remarkable. Her oncologist now used the word remission with increasing confidence. Her hair was growing back in soft auburn curls, and color had returned to her once pallid cheeks. What do you think, Dad? She held up her drawing, a detailed rendering of a medieval castle. It's beautiful, sweetheart, Max said, genuine pride warming his voice. You've really captured the architecture. Lily beamed, returning to her work. The path to healing hadn't been easy for either of them. Explaining Veronica's absence had been particularly challenging. Max had ultimately opted for a version of the truth. Mommy had done some bad things and needed to face consequences. The psychological toll had been significant, but Lily was proving as resilient in spirit as she was in body. Regular sessions with Dr. Vanessa Torres, a child psychologist specializing in trauma, were helping her process the betrayal without internalizing blame. Max's phone buzzed with a text from Ben. Judge denied bail again. Be not taking it well. A grim satisfaction settled in Max's chest. The evidence against Veronica and Drew was overwhelming, thanks to Max's meticulous documentation and the testimony of previous victims' families. The prosecution had charged them with conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, identity theft, and numerous other felonies. Dad, Lily's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Can we visit Grandma Eileen this weekend? Eileen Donovan, Max's mother, had become a stabilizing presence in their lives. After retiring from her nursing career in Portland, she'd temporarily moved into the Connecticut house, providing Lily with much-needed grandmotherly love and allowing Max to navigate the legal proceedings without worrying about childcare. Of course we can. I think she'd love that. The doorbell rang, and Max checked the security feed on his phone before going to answer. Detective Rivera stood on the porch, her expression more serious than usual. Detective, Max greeted her. This is unexpected. We need to talk, she said quietly. Privately. Max led her to his study, closing the door. What's happened? Rivera placed a file on his desk. Drew Callahan made bail this morning. That's impossible, Max said, his voice dangerously calm. Judge Montgomery assured me. Judge Montgomery recused himself due to your personal connection. The case was reassigned to Judge Winslow. New evidence was presented suggesting the audio recordings may have been obtained illegally. Max's mind raced. Winslow. The name triggered a memory, some connection to Drew's past that hadn't seemed significant before. They went to law school together, Rivera confirmed, reading his thoughts. Nothing so blatant that Winslow had to recuse himself, but enough to tip the scales. And Veronica? Still in custody. For now. But Callahan's release complicates things. He's already hired Damian Frost as his attorney. Frost, one of the most expensive criminal defense attorneys in the Northeast, known for getting wealthy clients off on technicalities. What about the previous victims? The nurse's testimony, being challenged as hearsay. And the nurse, Teresa Mendoza, has suddenly become difficult to locate. Rivera's expression was grim. Someone got to her, Max. A cold fury settled in Max's bones. He'd anticipated resistance, but not this level of counterattack. Not so quickly. I'm implementing additional protection measures for you and Lily, Rivera continued. Patrol cars will make regular passes by your property, and… Thank you, Detective, but my security firm employs several former Special Forces operators. We have our own protocols. Max turned to the window, his reflection in the glass revealing nothing of the storm brewing inside him. I appreciate the warning. After Rivera left, Max made 2 calls. The first to his security team, activating their highest threat protocol. The second to a number few people knew existed. "It's Donovan," he said when the line connected. "I need the Vegas containment option. Full package." "Understood," came the reply. "Timeline." "Immediate." Max ended the call and returned to the sunroom where Lily was still sketching, blissfully unaware of the new danger. Eileen looked up from her knitting, her eyes asking the question she wouldn't voice in front of Lily. "Everything's fine," Max assured her, the lie smooth on his tongue. "Just some paperwork issues." That night, after Lily was asleep, Max briefed Eileen on the situation. "These people," she said, her voice tight with anger, "to target a child, their own family." "They're not family," Max corrected. "They never were." "What will you do?" Max considered his mother carefully. Eileen Donovan had raised him after his father's death in Desert Storm, instilling in him a moral code that valued loyalty and protection above all else. She'd never questioned his military service or the classified nature of his deployments. She understood that sometimes keeping good people safe required actions that existed in gray areas. "Whatever's necessary," he answered truthfully. Eileen nodded, accepting this as she always had. "Then I'll take Lily to Portland tomorrow. My house is paid off, security system updated last year. We'll stay there until this is resolved." "Thank you," Max said, grateful once again for his mother's practical strength. The next day, after seeing Eileen and Lily off at the private airfield, commercial flights being too easily tracked, Max returned home to find his front door slightly ajar. His hand moved instinctively to the concealed holster at his back as he entered cautiously. The intruder sat comfortably in Max's study, examining the chess set on the side table. "You always were methodical," Drew Callahan said, placing a white knight back on the board. "Planning several moves ahead." "You're trespassing," Max stated coldly, his hand still near his weapon. Drew smiled, unperturbed. "Actually, I'm not. This house is jointly owned by you and Veronica. As her attorney, I have her permission to be here." "You're not her attorney. You're her co-conspirator." "Alleged co-conspirator," Drew corrected. "And as of this morning, I am indeed representing Veronica in addition to myself." "Conflict of interest?" "Perhaps. But judges can be persuaded to overlook such technicalities." Max assessed the situation. Drew was too confident, which meant he either had backup nearby or believed himself untouchable. Either way, direct confrontation would be a mistake. "What do you want?" Drew leaned back, entirely at ease. "To propose a mutually beneficial arrangement. The evidence against Veronica and me is largely circumstantial or potentially inadmissible. The trial could drag on for years, during which your daughter's medical condition will remain public record, scrutinized by experts from both sides. Get to the point. Veronica is willing to surrender all parental rights. Complete custody to you. No visitation, no contact. In exchange, you withdraw your testimony and provide a statement that you misinterpreted private conversations about end-of-life planning." Max's expression remained neutral, but his mind was calculating rapidly. "And why would I agree to this?" "Because the alternative is a protracted legal battle that will traumatize Lily further, deplete your financial resources, and ultimately end with a hung jury or mistrial." Drew stood, straightening his designer suit. "We both know the system favors people like me, Max. People with connections. People who prey on dying children." A flash of genuine anger crossed Drew's face. "Don't moralize with me. You think I don't know about your military record? The operations you ran in places that don't officially exist? We've all done things, Maxwell. The difference is that some of us are honest about our motivations." Max moved to his desk, deliberately turning his back on Drew in a show of dismissal. "I'll have my attorney review your proposal." "You have 48 hours, Drew said, heading for the door. "After that, we go nuclear. Every aspect of your life exposed, including those years when Lily was an infant and you were running security consultations in Eastern Europe." After Drew left, Max remained motionless, processing. The threat was clear. Drew had dirt on Max's classified operations. Operations that, while sanctioned by the government, would appear highly questionable to the average citizen or juror. He pulled out his secure phone again, dialing a different number this time. "The containment has been compromised," he said when his contact answered. "Expand to includes all military operations from 2010 to 2014. Priority level, scorched earth." That's extreme, the voice replied cautiously. They threatened my daughter. There is no extreme. Max ended the call and opened his laptop, accessing a heavily encrypted server. Drawing on his intelligence background, he'd maintained comprehensive files on everyone in his orbit, contingency planning that now proved prescient. He pulled up Drew Callahan's file and began searching for the connection to Judge Winslow that Rivera had mentioned. What he found was far more significant than a law school friendship. Financial records showed Winslow had received consulting fees from a shell company linked to Drew's former law firm. More damning were emails discussing the handling of a malpractice suit against Winslow's brother, a surgeon who'd lost his license after a fatal error. Max documented everything, encrypting the files and sending copies to secure locations. Then he reached for his phone again, this time calling Rivera. "I have something on Winslow," he said without preamble. Enough to force his recusal and potentially bring ethics charges. "You shouldn't have that kind of information," Rivera said, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely surprised. "But I do. The question is, can you use it?" There was a long pause before Rivera answered. "Send it through official channels. Anonymous tip to the Judicial Review Board. I can make sure it gets the right kind of attention." Understood. As Max prepared the documentation, he received an alert from his security system. Someone was accessing the garden gate, someone using Veronica's old code. Switching to the exterior cameras, he saw a slender woman in a hospital uniform. Not Veronica, she remained in custody, but someone carrying a package with the hospital's logo. Max activated the gate's remote speaker. "Can I help you?" The woman looked up, startled. "Delivery for Lily Donovan. Her medication from Children's Hospital." Max frowned. Lily's medication had gone with her to Portland, and the hospital always coordinated deliveries through him directly. "Please leave it by the gate. I'll retrieve it shortly." The woman hesitated, then placed the package down and hurried back to an unmarked van parked on the street. Once she departed, Max used a remote-controlled robot from his security equipment to examine the package from a safe distance. The thermal imaging revealed no obvious explosive components, but the biochemical sensor detected traces of a substance that triggered an immediate alarm. Max called Ben. "I need a hazmat team at my residence. Now." The team arrived within 30 minutes, securing the package in a containment unit before confirming Max's suspicions. The medication contained a lethal dose of an untraceable toxin similar to those used in covert intelligence operations. "This isn't amateur hour," the hazmat leader told Max. "Whoever prepared this knew exactly what they were doing." "Can you trace it?" "We'll try, but compounds like this are specifically designed to leave no signature." After they departed with the evidence, Max sat in his study, a glass of whiskey untouched before him. Drew's visit hadn't been about negotiation. It had been a distraction while they attempted to eliminate Max completely, which meant the gloves were officially off. Max opened a hidden panel in his office wall, revealing a safe that contained items from his former life, items most civilians would never have access to. He removed a small black case and a passport in a name that wasn't his own. Phase 2 was no longer sufficient. It was time for Phase 3. Chapter 5, Counterattack. The exclusive rehab facility in the Berkshires catered to wealthy clients who needed to resolve their substance abuse issues with maximum privacy and minimum publicity. Its discreet security and isolated location made it perfect for those with secrets to protect. Clients like Lawrence Mercer, the insurance fraudster Veronica, had contacted before Lily's diagnosis. Max approached the facility not through the guarded main entrance, but via a service road that wound through dense forest. His vehicle, an unmarked van with utility company logos, attracted no attention as he parked near the maintenance shed. The service uniform he wore was impeccable in its ordinariness. With clipboard in hand and confidence in his bearing, Max walked directly into the facility through the staff entrance. Years of covert operations had taught him that proper attire and assured movement were better than any access card. He located Mercer's luxury suite easily enough. The man was in the garden, attending a group therapy session. Max slipped into the empty room, planted several surveillance devices, and departed without incident. By evening, he had established a comprehensive monitoring system and confirmed his suspicion. Mercer wasn't here for rehabilitation. He was hiding. Over the next 3 days, Max observed Mercer's routine, noting his communications and visitors. On the 4th day, Mercer received a phone call that sent him into a panic. He began packing immediately, making arrangements for a private helicopter. Max acted before Mercer could flee. Entering the suite during dinner service, he waited in the darkened bedroom until Mercer returned. "Hello, Lawrence," Max said calmly as Mercer flipped on the lights. Mercer froze, his hand instinctively moving toward the bedside table where a panic button was installed. "I wouldn't," Max advised. "The system's been temporarily disabled. We have approximately 8 minutes before security realizes there's a problem." "Who the hell are you?" Mercer demanded, though his ashen face suggested he already had suspicions. "Maxwell Donovan, Veronica's husband, Lily's father." Recognition and fear flashed across Mercer's features. "Look, whatever Veronica told you about me, it's not." "Veronica hasn't told me anything yet," Max interrupted. "But you're going to." "I don't know what you're talking." Max moved with practiced efficiency, pressing Mercer against the wall, a small device held near the man's neck. "This is a modified cardiac stimulator. Military grade. At the lowest setting, it creates the sensation of a mild heart attack. At the highest, well, it becomes indistinguishable from the real thing. Untraceable." Mercer's bravado evaporated. "What do you want?" "The truth, starting with how you met my wife and what you planned together." Over the next 5 minutes, Mercer confessed everything. How Veronica, then using the name Veronica Mills, had approached him about creating fraudulent insurance policies. How they'd worked together on 2 previous cases before she met Drew and decided Mercer was a liability. "She set me up," Mercer said bitterly. "Made it look like I was operating alone, then anonymously tipped off investigators when I wouldn't give her a bigger cut. I barely escaped prosecution." "And Lily's illness? Was that part of the plan from the beginning?" Mercer hesitated, genuine discomfort crossing his face. "I don't know anything about that. I swear. By the time your daughter got sick, Veronica and I had parted ways." Max studied him, detecting no deception. "Who else was involved? Besides Drew and Veronica?" "There's a doctor, Victor something, Eastern European, handles the medical side of things, and a nurse who helps access records. Teresa something, Mendoza," Max supplied. "She's disappeared." "Not surprised. They probably eliminated her once she became a liability." The facility's security system reactivated with a soft beep from Max's equipment. Their time was up. "Here's what happens next," Max said, stepping back. "You're going to document everything you've told me in a legally binding affidavit. Names, dates, details. In exchange, I ensure your name stays out of the official investigation. And if I refuse?" Max smiled thinly. "Then I leave, and 5 minutes later, someone from Drew Callahan's network arrives with far less benevolent intentions. They already know you're here, Lawrence. That panic call you received? That was them, preparing to tie up loose ends." Mercer's face drained of color. "How do I know you'll protect me?" "Because unlike Veronica and Drew, I keep my word." Max handed him a burner phone. "My associate will contact you within the hour with further instructions." Max departed as smoothly as he'd arrived, leaving no trace of his visit except the seed of cooperation he'd planted in Mercer's mind. By the following afternoon, Max had what he needed. Mercer's comprehensive statement, electronically notarized and backed by documentation that linked Drew and Veronica to insurance schemes dating back 7 years. He delivered the evidence to Rivera anonymously, then turned his attention to the next phase of his plan, finding Teresa Mendoza before Drew's people did. The missing nurse proved more challenging to locate. Her apartment had been cleared out, her phone disconnected, her social media accounts deleted. But Max had resources beyond conventional search methods. Using contacts from his intelligence days, he gained access to private transportation databases that revealed a rental car in Teresa's name had been returned to an agency near the Canadian border. From there, he traced her movement to a small town in Quebec where she had extended family. Max found her working at a local clinic under her maiden name, constantly looking over her shoulder. When he approached her outside the staff entrance, she nearly collapsed in terror. "I'm not here to hurt you," he assured her, showing his empty hands. "I'm Lily Donovan's father." Recognition dawned in her eyes. The little girl with leukemia. Her accent was thicker than in the recorded testimony, stress bringing out her native cadence. "Yes, I need your help to put away the people who plan to harm her." Teresa shook her head frantically. "I can't. They threaten my family. My sister has children." I can protect them, Max promised. All of them. But I need your testimony. You don't understand. These people, they have connections everywhere. The justice system won't stop them. Max stepped closer, his voice low and intense. I'm not relying on the justice system alone. I have resources, capabilities that go beyond legal channels. Your family will be safe. You have my word. Something in his tone convinced her. Perhaps she recognized in him the same determination she'd seen in other desperate parents, but backed by dangerous competence. What do you need me to do? Return with me to testify. Tell the truth about everything you witnessed. Once it's done, I'll arrange new identities, new locations for you and your family. A completely fresh start. Teresa considered this for a long moment. How do I know I can trust you? In answer, Max showed her a secure tablet with live video feeds of her sister's home in Mexico, her brother's apartment in Arizona, her parents' house in New Mexico. Each location now had unmarked security vehicles nearby, protective details already in place. They're being watched over as we speak. No one will get near them. Teresa's eyes widened. Who are you? Really? Someone who protects his own, Max answered simply. Someone who keeps his promises. 2 days later, Teresa Mendoza was securely installed in a safe house outside of Hartford, her detailed testimony recorded and corroborated with evidence from Mercer's affidavit. The case against Drew and Veronica was rebuilding, stronger than before. Meanwhile, Max's private investigation had uncovered something unexpected, a pattern of suspicious deaths among wealthy patients at hospitals where Drew had connections. 5 cases over 3 years, each involving a terminal patient whose condition suddenly deteriorated after showing signs of improvement. Each with substantial insurance policies. Each with a different woman playing the role Veronica had attempted with Max. Most disturbing was the medical examiner who'd signed off on all 5 deaths. Dr. Anton Kozlov, Victor Orlov's cousin, and another figure in Drew's network of conspirators. Max compiled the evidence and arranged a meeting with the state's attorney general, bypassing local authorities who might have connections to Drew. The AG, a career prosecutor with political ambitions, recognized the magnitude of the case immediately. This isn't just insurance fraud, she said, reviewing the files. This is a serial killing operation disguised as medical malpractice. Exactly, Max confirmed. And the scope extends beyond state lines, possibly qualifying for federal prosecution, which would remove it from Judge Winslow's jurisdiction entirely. The AG nodded appreciatively. Clever approach, Mr. Donovan. Within hours, federal authorities were involved. Drew's bail was revoked as he was deemed a flight risk under the new charges. Veronica remained in custody, now facing additional federal indictments. Dr. Kozlov was arrested attempting to board a flight to Belarus. But Max knew better than to consider the battle won. People with Drew's resources and desperation were most dangerous when cornered. His instincts proved correct when Ben called with urgent news. We've got incoming. Drew made 2 calls from holding before they revoked his privileges. One to a law firm in Delaware, one to a number in Moscow that's associated with certain contract services. Max understood immediately. How many? Facial recognition picked up 3 known operatives arriving at regional airports in the past 6 hours. Backgrounds suggest Spetsnaz training, subsequent private sector work. Professional killers. Not surprising given Drew's connections to Russian clients during his legal career. Current locations? Unknown. They're good. Max very good. Max considered his options. Lily and Eileen were safe in Portland under heavy protection. Teresa was secure in the safe house. That left one vulnerable point, Max himself. Let them come, he decided. But on our terms. He outlined a plan that would use his home as bait, with Ben's team establishing a sophisticated surveillance and countermeasure perimeter. The objective wasn't just to neutralize the threat, but to document it, creating irrefutable evidence of Drew's final desperate act. As night fell, Max sat alone in his study, the house dark except for a single lamp casting his silhouette against the blinds. A perfect target for anyone watching from outside. The first indication of the attack came at 11:17 p.m., a momentary disruption in the security system's power supply. Max calmly activated his contingencies as 3 figures in tactical gear approached the house from different directions. What followed was a masterclass in controlled counterambush. The intruders were skilled, but they were operating on unfamiliar terrain against an opponent who had prepared for precisely this scenario. One by one, they were incapacitated, not killed, as Max needed them alive for questioning. By midnight, all three were securely bound in Max's basement, their equipment and communications devices confiscated. Federal agents will be here within the hour, Ben informed Max as they surveyed their prisoners. Everything's documented. Audio, video, the works. Even the call traced back to the holding facility. Max nodded, studying the captured operatives with professional detachment. Make sure Rivera gets copies of everything. And contact the AG directly, no intermediaries. One of the bound men, the leader judging by his bearing, spoke in accented English. You are making a mistake. Our employer has many resources. This will not end here. Actually, Max replied, kneeling to meet the man's gaze. This is exactly where it ends. Your employer miscalculated. He thought I was an ordinary civilian, a grieving father he could manipulate or eliminate. What he failed to realize is that before I was a father, I specialized in dismantling operations exactly like his. Fear flickered in the operative's eyes as he finally recognized what they were dealing with. Not a target, but a predator who had allowed himself to be hunted so he could capture the hunters. By morning, the federal case against Drew, Veronica, and their network had expanded to include conspiracy to commit murder, use of interstate commerce for criminal enterprise, and numerous other charges that effectively guaranteed they would never walk free again. But as Max watched the sunrise from his study window, he felt no triumph. The danger to Lily was neutralized, but the deeper wound remained. The knowledge that the woman he had loved, the mother of his child, had been willing to sacrifice their daughter for money. Some betrayals could never truly be avenged. Only survived. Chapter 6. The Trial. The courtroom was silent as Maxwell Donovan took the stand, his posture military straight, his expression composed. 6 months had passed since the night of the home invasion, and the federal trial of Drew Callahan, Veronica Donovan, and their associates had become one of the most closely watched cases in recent memory. The prosecution had built a meticulous case, presenting evidence of a criminal enterprise that had targeted terminally ill patients across 5 states, resulting in at least 7 deaths and millions in fraudulent insurance claims. But today's testimony, Max's account of how they had targeted his own daughter, would humanize the cold financial data and medical records. Mr. Donovan, began federal prosecutor Alexandra Winters, please tell the court when you first became aware that your wife might be involved in a plot against your daughter. Max recounted the moment he'd overheard Veronica telling Lily to stop wasting Daddy's money on treatments. He described his investigation, his cooperation with law enforcement, and the devastating realization that his wife of 15 years had been living a double life. Throughout his testimony, Max avoided looking at Veronica, who sat beside her court-appointed attorney, her once immaculate appearance now diminished by months in federal custody. Drew, separated from her by guards, maintained the confident demeanor of a man still believing in his eventual escape from consequences. On cross-examination, Drew's high-priced defense attorney attempted to portray Max as paranoid, vengeful, and potentially violent. Mr. Donovan, isn't it true that your military service included covert operations that involved elimination of targets? Objection. Prosecutor Winters stood immediately. Mr. Donovan's classified military service is not relevant to these proceedings. Goes to credibility and potential bias, Your Honor, the defense countered. The judge considered briefly. I'll allow limited questioning on this matter, but tread carefully, counselor. The defense attorney pressed on. Mr. Donovan, have you ever used lethal force against another human being? Max met his gaze steadily. Yes, in service to my country and under lawful orders. And did you not once tell the defendant Drew Callahan, and I quote, if you ever come near my family again, prison will seem like a vacation resort compared to what I'll do to you? I did say that, yes. Sounds rather threatening, doesn't it? Like someone who might fabricate evidence to eliminate a perceived threat. Max's response was measured. It was not a threat. It was a promise to protect my child from people who had already demonstrated their willingness to harm her. Any parent in this courtroom would do the same. His words resonated with the jury, several of whom nodded almost imperceptibly. After Max's testimony came Teresa Mendoza, who provided damning insider details about the operation's medical aspects. Lawrence Mercer followed, His immunity deal securing his full cooperation as he outlined the financial structures designed to hide the fraud. Perhaps most powerful was the testimony of surviving family members from previous victims. People who had watched loved ones die unexpectedly after showing signs of improvement, only to later discover suspicious insurance policies and connections to Drew and his various female accomplices. As the trial entered its third week, an unexpected development occurred. Veronica, evidently realizing the overwhelming nature of the evidence against her, offered to testify against Drew in exchange for a reduced sentence. The prosecution, after consulting with Max, accepted the deal. As distasteful as it was to offer any leniency to Lily's mother, her testimony would ensure Drew received the maximum possible sentence. On the day of Veronica's testimony, the courtroom was packed. Max sat in the front row, flanked by Ben and Detective Rivera. For the first time since her arrest, he allowed himself to really look at the woman he had married, searching for any glimpse of the person he thought he'd known. Veronica took the stand, her hands visibly trembling. She avoided Max's gaze as she was sworn in, then began detailing her involvement with Drew's operation. "I met Andrew Callahan in Phoenix 5 years ago," she testified. "I was working as a pharmaceutical sales representative under my real name, Veronica Mills. He approached me after a conference, claiming to be impressed by my presentation skills. What began as a professional relationship quickly became personal." She described how Drew had gradually revealed his insurance fraud scheme, presenting it as a victimless crime targeting wealthy families and greedy insurance companies. Her role had been to establish relationships with target families, gathering information, and eventually influencing medical decisions. When did Maxwell and Lily Donovan become targets? Prosecutor Winters asked. Veronica swallowed hard. 3 years ago, Drew identified Max as a potential mark due to his financial resources and relative isolation. No extended family except for his mother, few close friends due to his frequent travel for work. "So your entire relationship with Mr. Donovan was fraudulent from the beginning?" "Yes," Veronica admitted, her voice barely audible. "And your daughter? Was her illness part of the plan?" At this, Veronica showed genuine emotion for the first time. "No, never. When Lily was diagnosed, I wanted to walk away from the scheme. But Drew convinced me that it was an opportunity, that we could use the situation to our advantage. By denying her potentially life-saving treatment? By ensuring that resources weren't wasted on treatments with low probability of success," Veronica said, repeating the rationalization she'd clearly used to justify her actions to herself. "And the $2 million insurance policy? The one you and Mr. Callahan discussed using to purchase property in Santorini? Drew arranged it. He had connections with insurance brokers who wouldn't ask too many questions." The questioning continued for hours, with Veronica gradually revealing the full extent of the operation, including the involvement of medical professionals who helped accelerate deaths when necessary. When the defense's turn came, Drew's attorney took a brutal approach, forcing Veronica to admit to multiple identities, previous frauds, and a pattern of targeting vulnerable families. The strategy was clear: paint Veronica as the mastermind and Drew as merely her legal advisor. "Isn't it true, Ms. Mills, or should I say Mrs. Donovan, that you approached Mr. Callahan with the scheme already in mind? That you had already conducted similar operations with Lawrence Mercer?" "No, that's not. And isn't it true that you manipulated Mr. Callahan into a romantic relationship to secure his legal expertise for your ongoing criminal enterprises?" Drew was fully aware. "Answer the question, please. Did you initiate the romantic relationship with Mr. Callahan?" "Yes, but..." "And did you similarly initiate your relationship with Maxwell Donovan specifically to gain access to his financial resources?" Veronica hesitated, then looked directly at Max for the first time. "Yes." The single word hit Max with unexpected force. Despite everything he knew, some part of him had still hoped for a different answer, some indication that not everything had been a lie. The defense continued its attack, portraying Veronica as a sociopathic manipulator who had ensnared both Drew and Max in her schemes. By the time her testimony concluded, she appeared thoroughly discredited, exactly as Drew's legal team had intended. Outside the courtroom, Rivera approached Max. "You okay?" "Fine," he replied automatically. "Bullshit," she said bluntly. Nobody would be fine after hearing that. Max allowed a hint of his true feelings to surface. I married a stranger, detective. Had a child with someone who never existed. How does anyone process that? One day at a time, Rivera suggested. Focus on what's real. Lily, your mother, the life you're rebuilding. Max nodded, but his mind was already elsewhere. Despite Veronica's testimony, he'd noticed something during Drew's reactions, subtle communications between him and his defense team when certain topics arose. They were still hiding something. That evening, Max convened a strategy session with Ben, Rivera, and Alexandra Winters in the secure conference room of his downtown office. Drew's too confident, Max stated, spreading photographs of the defendant across the table. Look at his body language. Even after Veronica's testimony, he still believes he has an escape route. The defense is planning to portray him as another victim of Veronica's manipulation, Winters noted. Without direct evidence of his instructions to Orloff or Kozlov, we're relying heavily on testimony from compromised witnesses. There's more, Max insisted. Something we're missing. He turned to Ben. What about the phone call Drew made from Holding before the Russian operatives arrived? The one to the law firm in Delaware. Standard attorney-client communication according to the facility logs, Ben replied. Protected. Too convenient, Max mused. A Delaware firm he's never used before, immediately followed by a call to Moscow. He paced the room, thinking aloud. What if the firm isn't just providing legal representation? What if they're holding something for him? A failsafe. Rivera leaned forward. Like what? Information, Max suggested. Blackmail material. Insurance against betrayal. Winters looked skeptical. Even if that's true, attorney-client privilege would protect any communications or materials he's entrusted to them. Unless, Max countered, the firm itself is part of the criminal conspiracy. If they're actively participating in or facilitating criminal activity, the privilege doesn't apply. A long discussion followed, exploring legal and investigative options. Finally, Winters made a decision. I'll request a sealed warrant to examine the firm's communications with specific Russian entities identified in our investigation. If we can establish a non-legal purpose for their relationship with Drew, we might pierce the privilege. The strategy proved inspired. The warrant revealed that the Delaware firm, Blackwood and Associates, was more than a law practice. It functioned as a clearinghouse for sensitive information, maintaining what amounted to an extortion library for clients like Drew. And within that library was the final piece of the puzzle. Comprehensive documentation of the entire operation, including Drew's direct instructions to medical personnel regarding specific victims. He kept records as protection against his accomplices, Rivera realized as they reviewed the seized materials. Insurance against betrayal. And now it will bury him, Winters said with satisfaction. The new evidence transformed the trial. Drew's defense collapsed as his own meticulous records confirmed his central role in every aspect of the criminal enterprise. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. At sentencing, the judge showed no mercy. Drew received multiple life sentences without possibility of parole. Veronica, despite her cooperation, was sentenced to 25 years. The medical professionals involved received sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years. As the courtroom emptied after the proceedings, Max found himself face-to-face with Veronica as marshals prepared to lead her away. Max, she began, her voice breaking, I know you won't believe me, but I did grow to care for you and Lily. It wasn't all a lie. Max studied her, searching for any trace of the woman he thought he'd married. You're right. I don't believe you. Can I? Would you ever let me see Lily again? When she's older? That will be her decision, not mine, Max answered truthfully. But I won't encourage it. Something like genuine pain crossed Veronica's features. I understand. Just tell her I'm sorry. Please. Max made no promises as the marshals led her away. Some things couldn't be forgiven, only survived. And some wounds could only heal with time and distance. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements. Max declined to comment, slipping through the crowd to where Ben waited with the car. It's over, Ben said as they pulled away from the media frenzy. Max gazed out the window at the city passing by. Almost. There was one final loose end to address. The matter of Viktor Orloff, who had fled the country before he could be apprehended. Max had tracked him to a coastal villa in Montenegro, where he was living under an assumed name, protected by the country's lax extradition policies. Justice had been served through the courts for everyone else. For Orlov, the man who had been prepared to administer whatever alternate solution would have hastened Lily's death, Max had something more personal in mind. Phase 3 was nearly complete. Just one more task remained. Chapter 7, The Final Reckoning. The Adriatic Sea glittered like hammered silver in the morning light as Maxwell Donovan stepped onto the private dock of a secluded Montenegrin cove. 3 months had passed since the trial's conclusion, and Max had used that time meticulously planning this moment. Viktor Orlov's villa stood on the cliffside above, its white walls gleaming against the blue sky. Local sources confirmed the former medical examiner rarely left the property, living in luxurious isolation funded by his years of criminal cooperation with Drew Callahan. Max adjusted his sunglasses and began the ascent up the narrow path. The documents in his briefcase, secured during the raid on Blackwood and Associates, detailed Orlov's direct involvement in at least 3 patient deaths, including the administration of untraceable compounds to accelerate fatal outcomes. American justice couldn't reach him here, but Max could. The villa's security was surprisingly minimal, a single guard who patrolled the perimeter and basic electronic surveillance. Perhaps Orlov believed his remote location and Montenegro's protection were sufficient. Perhaps he simply didn't expect anyone to track him to this corner of the Balkans. Either way, it took Max less than 10 minutes to bypass the systems and enter the house undetected. He found Orlov on the terrace, enjoying breakfast while reading financial news on a tablet. The Eurobonds are underperforming today, Max commented casually as he emerged from the house. Orlov froze, coffee cup halfway to his lips. Who are you? How did you get in here? I think you know exactly who I am, Max replied, taking a seat across from him. Maxwell Donovan, father of Lily Donovan, the girl you were contracted to kill. The color drained from Orlov's face. I never touched your daughter. I never even met her. Not for lack of trying. Max opened his briefcase, removing a file. You were preparing a solution at Drew's request. The same solution you administered to Martin Weber in Boston, and Catherine Dempsey in Chicago, and Thomas Harrington in Seattle. Orlov's eyes darted toward the house, perhaps calculating the distance to a weapon or alarm. Your guard is taking an unexpected nap, Max informed him. And your security system is on a loop. It's just you and me. What do you want? Money? I have offshore accounts. I'm not here for money, Max cut him off. I'm here for justice. Fear flashed across Orlov's features. You're going to kill me. Max tilted his head, studying the man. In his intelligence career, he'd eliminated targets when necessary. He'd justified it as service to his country, protection of the innocent. And part of him, the cold, precise part that had calculated every move in this chess game, had indeed considered delivering final justice to the man who would have murdered his daughter. Actually, no, Max said finally. Death would be too quick, too merciful. Relief flooded Orlov's expression, quickly replaced by wariness. Then what? Max removed a small device from his pocket, a satellite phone with a single number programmed into it. In approximately 30 seconds, your villa will be surrounded by Interpol agents. The Montenegrin government has been provided with overwhelming evidence of your crimes, along with documentation of how you violated local laws since arriving. Your extradition to the United States has already been approved at the highest levels. As if on cue, the sound of helicopter rotors became audible in the distance. That's impossible, Orlov sputtered. Montenegro doesn't extradite. Conventional diplomatic channels can be slow and ineffective, Max agreed. But when evidence of your side business selling black market medical supplies to local criminal organizations is presented to the right people, priorities shift remarkably quickly. Orlov lunged suddenly, reaching across the table for Max's throat. The attack was amateur, driven by desperation rather than skill. Max deflected it easily, twisting Orlov's arm behind his back and forcing him to his knees. That was unwise, Max said calmly, securing Orlov's wrists with a zip tie. Assaulting a witness cooperating with Interpol will only add to your charges. The helicopter was directly overhead now, and vehicles could be heard approaching on the access road below. You're making a mistake, Orlov gasped. I have powerful friends. People who can reach anywhere, even American prisons. Max leaned down, his voice dropping to a whisper. I'm counting on it. Because if anything happens to me or anyone I care about, If you so much as attempt to contact associates about retaliation, the second part of my insurance policy activates automatically. What's second part? Complete disclosure. Every client, operation, corrupt medical professional you've ever worked with. Currently secured in multiple locations, set to release to global law enforcement and media outlets if certain conditions are met. Max straightened up as uniformed officers stormed onto the terrace. Your only chance at eventual freedom is my continued well-being and satisfaction. The Interpol team took custody of Orlov, who continued to protest his innocence even as he was led to the waiting helicopter. The lead investigator, a no-nonsense Frenchwoman, approached Max. Mr. Donovan, your information was extremely comprehensive. We've been after Orlov's medical supply network for years. Happy to help, Inspector Rousseau. Will the extradition proceed as arranged? Without delay. The Americans are quite eager to speak with him. She handed Max a diplomatic passport. Your consultant status has been extended by 6 months, as requested. Though I hope you'll consider a more permanent position with our organization. Max smiled politely. One case at a time, Inspector. As the helicopter departed with Orlov secured inside, Max took a moment to appreciate the view from the terrace. The Adriatic stretched to the horizon, peaceful and eternal. So different from the chaos and betrayal of recent months. He pulled out his personal phone and dialed. It's done, he said when the call connected. Good, Ben replied. Lily's been asking when you're coming home. Tomorrow, Max promised. Everything ready on your end? The new security protocols are in place. Eileen helped Lily settle into her room. The house is ready whenever you are. Max ended the call and took one last look at the sea. Victor Orlov was the final piece of Drew and Veronica's network, the last threat to Lily's safety. With his capture, a chapter was closing, the chapter of retribution and justice. Now came the harder part, rebuilding, creating a new life from the ashes of betrayal. As Max descended toward the waiting car, his phone chimed with an incoming message. A photo from Eileen showing Lily in her new bedroom, smiling as she arranged books on a shelf. The sight centered him, reminding him why all of this had been necessary. For her. Everything for her. The next day, Max returned to Connecticut, to the house he'd purchased in a quiet neighborhood far from the memories of his former home. The property was smaller but warmer somehow, with a garden Eileen had already filled with Lily's favorite flowers. Dad, Lily called from the front porch as his car pulled into the driveway. Despite still recovering from her treatments, she bounded down the steps and threw herself into his arms as he emerged from the vehicle. Hey, sweetheart, he said, holding her tight. I missed you. Grandma and I made your room perfect, she informed him, pulling back to examine his face. You look tired. Just the travel, he assured her. Nothing a good night's sleep won't fix. Inside, Eileen waited with lunch prepared. The three of them ate together, Lily chattering about her new school and the friends she was making, Eileen sharing updates on her gardening projects. Normal family conversation, restorative in its simplicity. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Eileen joined Max on the back porch. She handed him a glass of whiskey and settled into the chair beside him. Is it finished? She asked quietly. Yes, Max confirmed. Completely. Eileen studied her son's profile in the dim porch light. And are you at peace with how it ended? Max considered the question carefully. The path he'd chosen had been ruthless but necessary. He'd dismantled a criminal enterprise, secured justice for multiple victims, and ensured Lily's safety. But he'd also operated in moral gray areas, leveraged questionable connections, and at times, come dangerously close to crossing lines he'd promised himself he never would. I can live with it, he answered finally. Eileen nodded, understanding all he didn't say. Lily's latest scan was clear. Dr. Patterson says her prognosis is excellent. I know. He called me yesterday. You did what you had to do, Maxwell. To protect her. No one can judge you for that. Max took a sip of his whiskey, letting the warmth spread through him. I appreciate that, Mom. But I do judge myself. They sat in companionable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the new neighborhood. I'm thinking of accepting a job offer, Max said eventually. Consulting with Interpol's Financial Crimes Division. Using my security background to help track operations similar to Drew's. Sounds like important work. It would mean some travel, but nothing like before. Most of it could be done remotely. Eileen smiled. Lily and I will be fine when you need to travel. She's stronger than you think. I know she is. Max agreed, thinking of all his daughter had endured. She gets that from you. As spring turned to summer, life settled into new patterns. Lily continued to recover, her strength returning, her spirit resilient despite everything she'd experienced. She asked about Veronica occasionally, and Max answered as honestly as age-appropriate boundaries allowed, never vilifying her mother, but never sugarcoating the betrayal either. Max's work with Interpol proved surprisingly fulfilling. His unique combination of intelligence background, security expertise, and personal experience with sophisticated fraud made him particularly effective at identifying and dismantling similar operations internationally. One evening in late August, Max received an unexpected call from Detective Rivera. "Thought you'd want to know," she said without preamble. "Veronica is being transferred to the Federal Medical Center in Lexington. She has stage 3 ovarian cancer." The news hit Max with unexpected force. Not grief exactly, but a complex emotion he couldn't immediately identify. "Prognosis?" he asked. "Not good. She's refusing most treatments." After the call ended, Max sat in his office for a long time, turning over this new information. The woman who had been willing to deny their daughter life-saving treatment was now refusing treatment for herself. The irony wasn't lost on him. That night, he had a difficult conversation with Lily. "Your mother is very sick," he explained gently. "The doctors are doing what they can, but she may not have much time left." Lily absorbed this with the preternatural calm she'd developed during her own illness. "Can I see her?" The question Max had been dreading. "Do you want to?" Lily considered this carefully. "I think so. Not because I'm not still mad at her. I am. But I think I'd regret it if I never saw her again." Max nodded, proud of his daughter's wisdom and emotional maturity. "Then we'll arrange it." The visit to the federal medical facility was arranged for the following weekend. Max insisted on being present, unwilling to leave Lily alone with Veronica, despite the guards and medical staff. Some trust could never be rebuilt. Veronica was visibly diminished by her illness, her once beautiful features gaunt, her honey blonde hair replaced by a simple headscarf. When Lily entered the room, Veronica's eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You look so healthy, so strong." Lily approached cautiously, stopping a few feet from the bed. "I'm in remission. Dr. Patterson says the chances of relapse get smaller every month." "That's wonderful," Veronica said, genuine joy in her voice. She glanced at Max, who stood silently by the door. "Thank you for bringing her." Max nodded once, neither hostile nor forgiving. The conversation that followed was awkward but necessary. Lily asked direct questions about why Veronica had done what she did, and to Max's surprise, Veronica answered with relative honesty, admitting to selfishness and greed without making excuses. "I convinced myself I wasn't really hurting anyone," she explained. "That insurance companies could afford the payouts, that terminally ill patients were going to die anyway. I told myself so many lies that I started believing them." "Did you ever love us?" Lily asked, the question cutting to the heart of things. Veronica's gaze moved from Lily to Max and back again. "I didn't at first. When I married your father, it was part of a plan. But then you were born, and something changed in me. I did love you, Lily. I still do. And that made what I did later even worse, because I betrayed that love." "What about Dad?" A complicated expression crossed Veronica's face. "Your father is a remarkable man. Strong, loyal, determined. Over time, I came to respect him greatly. But Drew," she trailed off. "Drew had a hold on you," Lily supplied. "Yes, though that's no excuse." The visit lasted an hour. As they prepared to leave, Veronica asked for a moment alone with Max. "Are you sure?" he asked Lily. "It's okay, Dad," she assured him. "I'll wait in the hallway." When they were alone, Veronica struggled to sit up straighter in the bed. "Thank you for bringing her, for raising her so well despite everything I did." "I didn't do it for you," Max said simply. "I know." Veronica hesitated. "There's something you should know. Something I didn't tell the prosecutors." Max tensed slightly. "What?" Drew had a partner. Someone who financed the operation from the beginning but stayed completely in the background. A man named Raymond Frost. The name registered immediately. Any relation to Damien Frost? Drew's attorney. His father. He's elderly now, living in a compound in upstate New York. But he was the architect of the entire scheme. He provided the initial capital, the connections to corrupt medical professionals. Drew was essentially his protege. Max processed this new information. Why tell me this now? Veronica met his gaze directly. Because despite everything, I don't want you and Lily looking over your shoulders forever. Frost is vindictive. He won't respond well to his investment being dismantled. And he has resources that make Drew look like a small-time operator. Are you suggesting he might target us for revenge? I'm saying it's possible. He's in his 80s and declining mentally, but his organization remains intact. Mainly financial crimes now, but with the capability for more direct action if he felt it necessary. Max studied her, looking for deception. And you're telling me this out of concern for our safety? Believe what you want, Maxwell. But yes, I am. She lay back against the pillows, visibly exhausted. I've done enough harm. As Max drove Lily home, his mind worked through the implications of this new information. If Veronica was telling the truth, and his instincts suggested she was, then the threat wasn't entirely neutralized. Raymond Frost represented a loose end, a potential danger to the new life he was building with Lily. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Max contacted Ben and Rivera, sharing what he'd learned and requesting deep background on Raymond Frost. If he exists, we'll find him, Ben promised. 3 days later, they had confirmation. Raymond Frost was real, a reclusive financier with suspected ties to organized crime and a complex network of shell companies that mirrored the structure used by Drew Callahan's operation. The question, Rivera said during their secure video conference, is whether he poses an active threat or if he's truly just a declining old man uninvolved in day-to-day operations. Max wasn't willing to take chances. I want complete surveillance. Every communication, visitor, financial transaction. That's a massive undertaking, Ben cautioned. His security will be substantial. Then will be subtle. Long-range observation, electronic monitoring, financial tracking. Nothing that would trigger his awareness. Max's expression was determined. I won't live under threat, and I won't have Lily growing up looking over her shoulder. The surveillance operation took weeks to establish. Frost's compound in the Adirondacks was indeed heavily secured, with private guards, sophisticated electronic countermeasures, and limited access points. But Max's team was patient and resourceful, gradually building a comprehensive picture of the old man's activities. What emerged was both reassuring and concerning. Raymond Frost appeared genuinely diminished, rarely leaving his quarters and requiring full-time medical care. However, he received regular visits from high-level financial operatives and legal advisors, suggesting his network remained active despite his personal decline. Most worryingly, Max's team intercepted fragments of communications suggesting Frost was indeed aware of Drew's downfall and actively seeking information about those responsible. He's searching, Ben confirmed during their weekly update, but cautiously, through intermediaries and back channels. He doesn't have you specifically identified yet, but he's getting closer. Max made his decision. Then we move first. The plan he devised wasn't about violence or direct confrontation. Max had learned from his experience with Drew that sometimes the most effective weapon was information, specifically, the threat of its release. Using his Interpol connections and the evidence gathered during the Callahan case, Max compiled a comprehensive dossier on Frost's operations, his tax evasion schemes, money laundering operations, connections to corrupt officials. Everything that could dismantle his empire if made public. Then, through a series of carefully orchestrated moves, Max ensured that Frost became aware of the dossier's existence and its fail-safe distribution mechanism. If anything happened to Max, or anyone in his family, the information would automatically be released to law enforcement agencies worldwide. The message was clear: leave us alone, or lose everything. 2 tense weeks passed as Max waited to see if Frost would challenge the implicit threat or accept the stalemate. The answer came in the form of a handwritten letter delivered by private courier. Mr. Donovan. It read in shaky but elegant script. You have my reluctant admiration. Few have demonstrated such thoroughness in their precautions against me. I recognize a worthy adversary when I encounter one. Consider us at détente. My associates will pursue other ventures, leaving your family undisturbed. In return, I expect the same courtesy regarding my remaining interests. We need not be friends, but we need not be enemies either. Respectfully, RF. Max had the letter analyzed for hidden threats or codes, but it appeared to be exactly what it seemed: a pragmatic acknowledgement of mutual assured destruction. 2 days later, Ben confirmed that Frost's operatives had been recalled from their information-gathering mission. The threat was neutralized, not through violence, but through the careful application of leverage and deterrence. Max burned the letter in his fireplace that evening, watching the paper curl and blacken in the flames. Another chapter closed. Another threat contained. For the first time since discovering Veronica's betrayal, he allowed himself to believe that true peace might be possible. Chapter 8. Healing Wounds. Autumn painted the Connecticut landscape in brilliant hues of red and gold as Lily began 7th grade at her new school. The medical port that had delivered her chemotherapy had been removed, leaving only a small scar as physical evidence of her ordeal. The psychological scars ran deeper, but day by day, they too were healing. Max watched his daughter flourish with a mixture of pride and wonder. Her resilience continually amazed him. Her ability to process trauma and move forward without becoming hardened or bitter. In many ways, she had adapted to their new reality more smoothly than he had. "Dad," Lily asked one Saturday morning as they raked leaves in the yard, "do you ever miss Mom?" The question caught Max off guard. Lily rarely spoke of Veronica these days, though they received monthly updates on her medical condition from the prison hospital. "I miss who I thought she was," Max answered carefully. "The person I believed I married. But that person didn't really exist." Lily nodded thoughtfully, continuing to rake. "I think parts of her were real. The way she laughed at movies. How she always knew exactly which story I wanted at bedtime. Those felt real." Max considered this. "You're probably right. People are complicated, Lily. Even the worst people have moments of genuine goodness. And even the best people make terrible mistakes. Which are we?" Max smiled at his daughter's philosophical depth. "We're works in progress. Trying our best, learning from mistakes, growing a little better each day." Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. They worked in companionable silence for a while before she spoke again. "The school counselor says I should start a journal to help process everything. That sounds like a good idea. Would you like to get one today?" "Actually," Lily leaned her rake against a tree and reached into her pocket, withdrawing a small notebook. "Grandma already got me one. I've been writing in it for a week." "That's great, sweetheart. It helps," Lily confirmed. "Especially on days when I miss how things used to be. Not Mom exactly, but our old house, my old room. The way things were before I got sick." Max pulled her into a one-armed hug. "I miss those things too." That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Max sat in his home office reviewing case files for his Interpol consulting work. The international nature of financial crimes meant perpetrators often operated across multiple jurisdictions, making them difficult to prosecute effectively. His phone rang, Detective Rivera's number. "Max," she said when he answered, her tone immediately alerting him that something was wrong. "Veronica passed away 2 hours ago. The cancer spread to her liver and brain. It was quick at the end." Max sat back in his chair, absorbing the news. Despite everything, Veronica had been Lily's mother and his wife of 15 years. Her death represented yet another complicated loss to process. "Thank you for letting me know," he said finally. "There's more," Rivera continued. "She left letters. One for you, one for Lily. The prison chaplain witnessed them. They're being processed through her attorney, but I can expedite delivery if you want." Max hesitated. "Let me think about it. I'll need to consider how to handle this with Lily." "Of course. Take your time." After they hung up, Max moved to the living room window, gazing out at the quiet neighborhood street. Death had a way of crystallizing complicated emotions, bringing clarity even as it brought grief. He felt no joy at Veronica's passing, no vindictive satisfaction, just a hollow acknowledgement that a chapter had truly ended, and with it, any possibility of answers to questions he still carried. The next morning, Max waited until after breakfast to tell Lily. "Your mother died last night," he said gently, sitting beside her on the couch. "The cancer progressed very quickly at the end. The doctors say she wasn't in pain." Lily's expression shifted through several emotions before settling into a solemn stillness. "Oh, it's okay to feel confused about how to react," Max assured her. "Your relationship with her was complicated. There's no right or wrong way to feel right now." Lily nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm sad, but I'm also still angry with her." "Is that bad?" "No, honey. It's completely understandable." Max pulled her close. "She left letters for us. We don't have to read them right away, or ever if you don't want to. I think I do want to, Lily decided after a moment. But not today. Maybe next week. Whenever you're ready. The letters arrived 3 days later in a legal envelope. Max placed them in his desk drawer, giving Lily time to process the initial news of Veronica's death before complicating matters further. Life continued its forward momentum. Max's work with Interpol expanded to include training local law enforcement in recognizing sophisticated financial crimes. Lily joined the school science club and developed a particular interest in medical research, inspired, she said, by her own experience as a patient. 2 weeks after receiving news of Veronica's death, Lily approached Max in his office. "I'd like to read her letter now," she said with quiet determination. Max retrieved both envelopes from his drawer. "Would you like privacy, or would you prefer I stay with you?" "Stay, please." They sat together on the living room couch as Lily carefully opened the envelope addressed to her. The letter inside was several pages long, written in Veronica's distinctive flowing script. Max watched as his daughter read silently, her expression shifting between sorrow, confusion, and occasional flashes of anger. When she finished, she handed the pages to Max. "You can read it," she said. "I don't mind." The letter was surprisingly honest, an accounting of Veronica's failures as a mother, her regrets, and her hopes for Lily's future. She explained her actions without excusing them, acknowledged the damage she'd caused, and expressed genuine remorse. Most striking was the closing section. "I want you to know that your father is the finest man I've ever known. Everything good in me wanted to be worthy of his love and trust, even as my worst self betrayed him. He fought for you when I wouldn't, protected you when I endangered you. Whatever anger you may feel toward me, please never doubt that he loves you completely and would move heaven and earth to keep you safe. I learned too late what real love looks like, but you have its example in him every day." When Max finished reading, he looked up to find Lily studying him intently. "Do you want to read yours?" she asked. Max hesitated. "I'm not sure. I think you should," Lily said with unexpected firmness. "It might help." Recognizing the wisdom in her suggestion, Max opened his own envelope. Veronica's letter to him was shorter, but no less direct. "Maxwell," it began, "by the time you read this, I will be gone, and you will have every reason to discard these words unread. If you've chosen not to, thank you for this final courtesy. I won't insult you with apologies that can never be sufficient or explanations that would only sound like excuses. Instead, I offer you the one thing I never gave you during our marriage, the complete truth. When Drew first identified you as a potential target, I researched you thoroughly. Your military background, your security expertise, your financial stability. You were selected because you seemed isolated enough to be vulnerable, but successful enough to be valuable. What neither Drew nor I anticipated was you, the real you beneath the dossier. Your integrity, your strength, your capacity for love. While I was playing the role of devoted wife, you were genuinely being a devoted husband and father. The terrible irony is that I grew to admire the very qualities that would eventually be my undoing. Your loyalty, your protective instincts, your unflinching pursuit of truth. When Lily became ill, something in me did break. Not enough to abandon the plan entirely. My corruption ran too deep for that, but enough to create genuine conflict. There were moments when I truly wanted to be the wife and mother you both deserved. I tell you this not to seek forgiveness, which I have no right to ask, but to offer you liberation. Whatever doubts you may carry about our years together, know this. The love you gave was real and worthy, even if its recipient was not. The family you thought you had may have been built on a foundation of lies, but the care you showed, the protection you provided, the values you demonstrated, these were all genuine and valuable. You are not diminished by my betrayal. You are revealed in your full strength by how you responded to it. Our daughter is alive because of you. She has a future because you refused to give up on her. In my final days, this knowledge has been both my greatest comfort and my deepest shame. Live well, Maxwell. Build something beautiful from the wreckage I created. And know that in the end, facing death with clear eyes, I recognize the magnitude of what I destroyed when I betrayed you. Veronica. Max folded the letter carefully and returned it to its envelope. He felt no dramatic catharsis, no sudden release of anger or pain. But something had shifted subtly, a knot loosened, a weight incrementally lightened. "Are you okay?" Lily asked, watching him closely. Yes, Max answered, surprised to find it mostly true. Are you? Lily considered the question seriously. Not entirely, but I think I will be. Max nodded. That's all any of us can ask. In the days that followed, they established a new tradition of evening walks through their neighborhood, sometimes talking, sometimes simply enjoying the companionable silence. During one such walk, Lily broached a subject they'd avoided until now. What happens to her things? Her clothes and jewelry and stuff from the old house. Max had placed everything in storage after selling their former home, unwilling to discard Lily's mother's possessions without her input. Whatever you want to happen, he answered. We could donate it all, or you could keep anything that has meaning for you. Lily thought about this. Could we look through it together? I might want some things to remember the good parts. The following weekend, they visited the storage unit. Max had organized Veronica's belongings neatly, separating clothing, jewelry, personal items, and mementos. Lily approached the task, carefully examining each item before deciding whether to keep it. She selected only a few things. A silver bracelet Veronica had worn daily, a small collection of family photos from happier times, a scarf that still carried a trace of her mother's perfume. Everything else they agreed to donate to charity. As they prepared to leave, Lily noticed a box Max had placed apart from the others. What's in there? Max hesitated. Things from before she met us. Items she had when we first got together. Lily's curiosity was piqued. Can we look? After a moment's consideration, Max nodded. It's part of your history too. You have a right to know. The box contained remnants of Veronica's previous identities, driver's licenses under different names, photos of her with people they'd never met, documents from her life before becoming Veronica Donovan. She was like a spy, Lily said, examining an ID card with her mother's face but a stranger's name. In a way, Max agreed, but not for any country or cause, just for herself. As they sorted through the items, Lily found a small journal hidden beneath some papers. Look at this, she said, opening it carefully. Inside were entries dating back to before Veronica had met Max, chronicling her thoughts as she transitioned between identities. Most entries were calculating and cold, detailing potential targets and strategies for manipulation. But the entries after Lily's birth showed a gradual change. Increasing mentions of genuine attachment, conflicted feelings about the ongoing deception, the emergence of real affection competing with ingrained patterns of exploitation. She really did love me, Lily said softly, reading an entry from her 5th birthday. At least sometimes. I believe she did. Max agreed, recognizing the complexity of human emotion even in someone capable of terrible actions. Love and betrayal can coexist in the same heart. That's what makes betrayal so painful. They donated most of Veronica's belongings, but kept the journal and a few personal items that represented authentic moments in their shared history. Not to glorify or excuse what she had done, but to acknowledge the complicated truth that even deeply flawed people could experience genuine love. As autumn deepened toward winter, Max's work with Interpol led to a significant breakthrough: the identification of a network operating similarly to Drew's, but on an international scale. The methodology was nearly identical, targeting families with terminally ill members, manipulating medical decisions for insurance fraud, using romantic relationships as points of entry. The parallels are too strong to be coincidental, Max told Rivera during their secure weekly call. This has Raymond Frost's fingerprints all over it. But Frost agreed to leave you alone, Rivera pointed out. Why risk breaking that détente by continuing operations so similar to Drew's? Because he's not targeting us directly, Max realized. He's continuing the business model while honoring the letter of our agreement. Technically, he's left my family undisturbed as promised. The discovery reignited Max's determination. Frost's operation was victimizing other families, other vulnerable patients. The knowledge sat heavily on Max's conscience, especially given his unique understanding of how such schemes operated. After considerable reflection, he made a decision. He wouldn't confront Frost directly, which might endanger the protection he'd secured for Lily. Instead, he would work through official channels, using his Interpol position to systematically dismantle the network without revealing his personal connection to the case. It was a delicate balance, protecting his family while preventing harm to others, but Max was accustomed to navigating complex ethical terrain. Over the next several months, he led a quiet but relentless investigation, building cases against key operators in Frost's network. One by one, the components were identified, documented, and targeted for coordinated international enforcement action. The culmination came on a snowy February morning when simultaneous raids in 7 countries resulted in the arrest of 28 operatives and the seizure of millions in fraudulent proceeds. Max watched the operations unfold from Interpol's coordination center, satisfaction mingling with the knowledge that his work was protecting families who would never know the specific threat they had faced. That evening, as heavy snow blanketed Connecticut in pristine white, Max returned home to find Lily waiting with news of her own. "I got accepted to the summer medical research program," she announced excitedly. "The one at the Children's Hospital for kids who've had serious illnesses." Max embraced her, genuinely thrilled. "That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. Dr. Patterson wrote my recommendation letter. He said my perspective as both a patient and a potential researcher would be valuable. The program would allow Lily to work alongside researchers developing new treatments for childhood leukemia, turning her traumatic experience into something constructive and healing." Later, after Lily had gone upstairs to call friends with her news, Eileen joined Max in the kitchen. "She's truly remarkable," she observed, watching her son prepare dinner. "To take such pain and transform it into purpose. She gets that from you," Max said, echoing his earlier sentiment. Eileen shook her head. "From both of us. Your father would be proud of the man you've become, Maxwell, of how you've protected your family and rebuilt your lives." "I hope so," Max said quietly. That night, unable to sleep, Max stood at his bedroom window watching snow continue to fall. The events of the past 18 months had transformed him in ways he was still discovering. He had confronted the ultimate betrayal, fought for justice through both legal and extra-legal means, and emerged with his core values intact, but his perspective irrevocably altered. He no longer took loyalty for granted, no longer assumed that shared history guaranteed shared values. But neither had he allowed betrayal to destroy his capacity for trust or connection. If anything, the boundaries of his loyalty had become more clearly defined, his commitment to protecting those within those boundaries more fierce and uncompromising. Lily, Eileen, Ben, Rivera, the chosen family that had proven itself through crisis. As dawn approached, Max watched the first hints of light touch the snow-covered landscape, transforming it from shadowed mystery to brilliant clarity. There would be more challenges ahead, more tests of his resolve and character. Raymond Frost, though diminished, remained a potential threat. Lily's recovery, though promising, required ongoing vigilance. But for the first time since overhearing those devastating words outside Lily's hospital room, "Stop wasting Daddy's money on treatments," Max felt genuine hope for the future. Not just determination or grim resolve, but actual optimism. They had survived the unimaginable. They would thrive in what came next. Chapter 9, New Beginnings. 2 years had passed since Veronica's death. Spring sunshine bathed the university campus in golden light as Maxwell Donovan sat in the auditorium, watching with undisguised pride as 14-year-old Lily delivered her presentation at the Young Scientists Conference. The psychological impact of serious illness on adolescent development presents unique challenges, she explained to the rapt audience of medical professionals and educators. "My research indicates that integration of peer support with traditional therapy significantly improves outcomes across multiple metrics." Her poise was remarkable, confidence without arrogance, expertise tempered by genuine humility. The journey from frightened patient to budding medical researcher had transformed her, revealing strengths that might have remained dormant under different circumstances. Beside Max sat Dr. Patterson, now Lily's mentor in the hospital's youth research program. "She's extraordinary," the doctor whispered. "Johns Hopkins has already expressed interest in their early admission pipeline." After the presentation, as attendees filed out of the auditorium, a distinguished older man approached Max. "Mr. Donovan," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. William Cavendish, Director of the National Pediatric Research Initiative. Your daughter's work is impressive." "Thank you," Max replied, automatically assessing the stranger with the habitual wariness he'd never fully abandoned. "She's very dedicated. More than dedicated. She has unique insight." Cavendish handed Max a business card. We have a summer fellowship specifically for exceptional students like Lily. Full funding, mentorship from leading researchers. I'd like to discuss her candidacy with you both. Max accepted the card, promising to consider the opportunity. Such offers had become increasingly common as Lily's research gained attention in medical circles. Her perspective as both patient and researcher made her contributions uniquely valuable. Later that evening, as they celebrated the successful presentation with dinner at Lily's favorite restaurant, Max marveled at how far they'd come. The shadow that had once loomed over their lives had receded, replaced by purpose and possibility. "Dad," Lily's voice pulled him from his reflections. "You're a million miles away." "Just thinking about how proud I am," Max replied with a smile. "And how much has changed?" Lily nodded, understanding the unspoken history behind his words. "Good changes, though. Mostly." Their relationship had deepened through shared adversity, evolving into something built on mutual respect as well as parental love. Max consulted Lily on decisions affecting their family, valuing her perspective and emotional intelligence. In turn, she trusted his judgment and protection implicitly. "I've been thinking about Mom's birthday next week," Lily said, addressing a topic that still required careful navigation. "I'd like to visit her grave, if that's okay." Despite her crimes, Veronica had been buried in a small cemetery near Hartford, her funeral attended only by Max, Lily, and Eileen. Max had arranged it not out of lingering affection, but because Lily deserved the chance to say goodbye properly. "Of course," Max agreed. "We can bring flowers if you'd like." Lily nodded, relieved. "Thanks. It still feels complicated, but I think it's important." "Complicated is okay," Max assured her. "Healing isn't linear." The following day, Max received an encrypted message from his Interpol contact, routine updates on the network they'd dismantled, and ongoing monitoring of Raymond Frost's diminished operations. The message contained an unexpected detail. Frost had suffered a major stroke 3 weeks earlier and was now in hospice care, unlikely to recover. His criminal enterprises, already weakened by the coordinated enforcement actions, were disintegrating into competing factions without his central authority. Max absorbed this information with a complex mixture of satisfaction and wariness. Threats rarely disappeared so neatly, and he'd learned to be skeptical of apparently fortuitous developments. He increased surveillance on Frost's compound, half expecting to discover the stroke was a ruse designed to lower their guard. But subsequent intelligence confirmed the reality of Frost's decline. Medical records documented his deterioration, and trusted sources reported the power vacuum triggering internal conflicts among his lieutenants. 2 weeks later, Raymond Frost died in his sleep, his passing noted only briefly in financial publications. Max maintained enhanced security protocols for another month before gradually scaling back to normal vigilance. The final chapter of the threat had closed not with dramatic confrontation, but with the anticlimactic reality of natural mortality. Max found a certain fitting justice in this, that a man who had profited from hastening others' deaths had ultimately been powerless against his own. Summer arrived, bringing Lily's 15th birthday and her acceptance into Dr. Cavendish's prestigious fellowship program. The position would require relocating to Boston for 2 months, her first extended period away from home since her illness. "Are you nervous?" Max asked as they packed her belongings for the temporary move. "A little," Lily admitted, "but excited too. It feels like the next step, you know? Moving forward." Max nodded, fighting the protective instinct to keep her close. "The security team will maintain discreet surveillance, and I've vetted everyone associated with the program." Lily smiled with affectionate exasperation. "Dad, I know, and I appreciate it, really. But at some point, we have to trust that the danger is past." "Trust, but verify," Max replied with a wink, quoting one of his intelligence training principles. "Always the security consultant," Lily teased, but her eyes conveyed understanding of the experiences that had shaped his caution. The day before Lily's departure for Boston, Max received an unexpected visitor at his office, Detective Sophia Rivera, recently promoted to captain. "This isn't an official visit," she clarified, accepting the coffee Max offered. "More of a professional courtesy." She placed a file on his desk. Inside were documents detailing the final dissolution of Drew Callahan's remaining legal appeals. His conviction had been upheld at every level, his multiple life sentences confirmed by the highest courts. "It's over," Rivera said simply. "Completely and irrevocably. I thought you should know." Max reviewed the documents carefully. "Thank you for this." "There's more," Rivera continued. "The testimony you helped secure, Mendoza, Mercer, the evidence from Frost's operation. It's led to a complete overhaul of insurance protocols for terminally ill patients. New safeguards, enhanced scrutiny of policy changes, better protection against exploitation." This news affected Max more deeply than the confirmation of Drew's permanent incarceration. The systemic changes meant other families would be protected from similar predators, a lasting legacy from their ordeal. "That makes it worth it," he said quietly, knowing some good came from all of this. Rivera studied him thoughtfully. "You've changed, Max. When we first met, you were all cold calculation and righteous fury. Understandably so. Circumstances required it," Max replied, though he recognized the truth in her observation. The man who had dismantled Drew and Veronica's operation had been shaped by betrayal into something harder, more ruthless than his previous self. "And now?" Rivera asked. Max considered the question. "Now I'm trying to balance vigilance with living, protecting Lily without suffocating her potential. It's an ongoing adjustment." "You're doing well with it," Rivera assured him. "Your daughter is thriving. That's the true victory." After Rivera left, Max stood at his office window, watching the summer crowds on the street below. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, unaware of the predators he'd spent 2 years hunting, unaware that their insurance policies now contain protections specifically designed to prevent the exploitation Veronica and Drew had perfected. There was satisfaction in that anonymity, in battles won silently, threats neutralized without public knowledge of their existence. His military career had trained him for such invisible victories. That evening, Max and Lily had dinner with Eileen, celebrating the impending fellowship opportunity. Eileen had moved into a condo nearby after the crisis period ended, maintaining her independence while remaining close enough for regular family gatherings. "To new beginnings," Eileen proposed, raising her glass. "And to the remarkable young woman you've become, Lily." Lily blushed slightly at the praise. "I couldn't have done it without both of you. Especially you, Dad." Max smiled, setting aside his habitual reserve. "We did it together. As a family." The next morning dawned clear and bright as they loaded Lily's luggage into the car for the drive to Boston. The security arrangements were in place, but deliberately unobtrusive, protection without restriction. "Remember," Max said as they approached the research center where Lily would be staying, "weekly video calls, emergency protocols if needed, and no deviations from established check-in procedures." Lily finished with an affectionate eye roll. "I remember, Dad. Comprehensive security briefing, version 15. Max chuckled, acknowledging his overprotective tendencies. "Just looking out for you, sweetheart." "I know." Her expression grew serious. "And I'm grateful. Not everyone has someone who would go to the lengths you did to keep them safe." The observation hung between them. The unspoken acknowledgement of just how far Max had gone to protect her, the moral gray areas he'd navigated, the relentless pursuit of those who had threatened her. "You're worth it," he said simply. "Always have been. Always will be." After helping Lily settle into her dormitory and meeting her program mentors, all thoroughly vetted in advance, Max prepared for the hardest part, saying goodbye. Though Boston was only a few hours' drive away, this marked the first significant separation since her recovery. "I'll be fine, Dad," Lily assured him, recognizing his internal struggle. "And so will you." Max embraced her, marveling at her emotional intelligence and maturity. "I know you will. Call me when you get settled." The drive back to Connecticut gave Max time to reflect on their journey. From the devastating moment he'd overheard Veronica's cruel dismissal of their daughter's treatment to this point of new beginnings and expanding horizons. They had survived betrayal, illness, danger, and loss. More than survived, they had rebuilt, created something stronger and more authentic from the ruins of deception. As summer progressed, Lily thrived in the research program. Her weekly video calls filled with enthusiastic descriptions of laboratory breakthroughs and new friendships. Max gradually relaxed his hypervigilance, allowing himself to focus more on his expanding work with Interpol and less on potential threats that no longer materialized. In August, he traveled to Boston for the program's culmination ceremony, where Lily presented her research findings to an audience of medical professionals. Her project, focusing on psychological support systems for adolescents with life-threatening illnesses, received special recognition from the Foundation's board. "Your daughter has a remarkable future ahead of her," Dr. Cavendish told Max during the reception. "Her personal experience combined with her analytical mind gives her insights few researchers possess. She's always been exceptional." Max agreed, watching Lily confidently discuss her methodology with a group of senior researchers. But her illness and what followed, it focused her potential in unexpected ways. "Adversity can do that," Cavendish observed. "The most resilient people often emerge from the greatest challenges." The conversation reminded Max of something Lily had written in her research paper, a passage that had particularly resonated with him. "Trauma fundamentally changes us. The key is not returning to who we were before, an impossibility, but intentionally shaping who we become after." They had both been changed by Veronica's betrayal and all that followed. The crucial difference lay in their conscious choices about how those changes would manifest, what they would preserve of their former selves, and what they would deliberately transform. On their drive home from Boston, with Lily's fellowship successfully completed, they stopped at a scenic overlook along the coast. The late summer sun gilded the Atlantic with golden light, waves crashing rhythmically against the rocky shore below. "I've been thinking," Lily said as they watched the timeless dance of sea and stone, "about what comes next." "The medical track seems to be working well for you," Max observed. "Dr. Patterson mentioned Johns Hopkins has early interest." "That's part of it," Lily agreed. "But I've been thinking bigger picture. About purpose." She turned to face him directly. "The foundation you helped establish with the settlement funds from the insurance companies, the one helping families with critically ill children navigate the financial and emotional challenges. What about it?" Max asked, though he suspected where this was heading. "I want to get more involved, not just as the founder's daughter or a former patient, but actively, developing programs, working with families directly." The Maxwell Donovan Foundation had emerged from the financial resolution of the case against Drew and Veronica's network. Rather than keep the substantial settlement funds, Max had established an organization dedicated to protecting vulnerable families from predatory practices while providing practical support during medical crises. "It would be challenging," Max cautioned. "Emotionally demanding, seeing families going through situations similar to ours." "I know," Lily acknowledged. "But who better to help them? We've been there. We know the terrain, medical, emotional, financial. We can guide them through it." Max studied his daughter with pride. The traumatized child he'd fought so desperately to protect had become a young woman determined to transform her pain into purpose. "We'll make it happen," he promised. Together, as autumn arrived, bringing brilliant foliage and cooler temperatures, Max found himself increasingly sharing responsibility for the foundation with Lily. Her perspective proved invaluable in developing new support programs, particularly those aimed at helping children cope with the psychological impacts of serious illness. They established a specialized division focusing on families where one parent was absent or unsupportive, addressing the specific challenges Lily had faced during her treatment. The program included legal advocacy, ensuring that medical decisions couldn't be undermined by conflicted interests or financial pressures. Through this work, Max observed another evolution in himself, a gradual shift from the defensive protector forged in crisis to a more proactive builder. The skills that had served him in dismantling threats now found new application in constructing safeguards for others. One October afternoon, as crimson leaves swirled across the foundation's courtyard, Max received a phone call from Teresa Mendoza. After providing crucial testimony against Drew and Veronica, she had relocated with her family to Arizona under new identities, establishing a successful nursing practice specializing in pediatric oncology. "I saw the foundation's new advocacy program featured in a medical journal," she said, her accent still faintly detectable. "The work you're doing, it's extraordinary." "Thank you," Max replied, genuinely appreciative. "Your testimony made much of it possible." "I've been considering reaching out," Teresa continued. "My experience with Drew's operation gives me insight that could help identify similar schemes. Perhaps I could consult on developing warning indicators for healthcare providers to recognize potential exploitation." The offer represented another unexpected positive outcome. the transformation of a former reluctant participant in criminal activity into an active force for prevention and protection. I think that would be incredibly valuable, Max agreed. Let me connect you with our program director to discuss the possibilities. As winter approached, bringing the second anniversary of Veronica's death, Max and Lily maintained their tradition of visiting her grave. They placed simple flowers beside the modest headstone, acknowledging the complicated legacy of a woman who had been both mother and threat, wife and betrayer. I still don't know exactly how to feel about her, Lily admitted as they stood in the quiet cemetery. Sometimes I'm angry, sometimes sad, sometimes I just feel nothing. That's natural, Max assured her. Some relationships defy simple emotions, especially when they involve profound betrayal alongside genuine connection. What about you? Lily asked. How do you feel about her now? Max considered the question carefully. I've accepted that parts of our relationship were real, even if the foundation was false. I've forgiven her not for her sake, but for my own peace. And I've acknowledged that without her, both the good and the terrible, you and I wouldn't be who we are today. Lily nodded, understanding the complex truth in his words. Do you think you'll ever trust someone that way again? Enough to remarry. The question surprised Max. He dated occasionally over the past year, but kept relationships deliberately casual and compartmentalized. I'm open to the possibility, he said honestly. But it would be different. More careful, more grounded in reality than idealization. I hope you do, Lily said softly. You deserve that kind of happiness. As they walked back to the car, snow began falling, large flakes drifting lazily from a pearl-gray sky. They paused to watch the transformation of the landscape, the gradual covering of dead grass and bare trees with pristine white. It's beautiful, Lily observed. How something so cold can make everything look so perfect. Nature's fresh start, Max agreed, covering the old, making way for new growth in the spring. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them. Their own winter, that dark period of betrayal, illness, and danger, had gradually yielded to renewal. Not erasing the past, but building upon it something more authentic and resilient. As Christmas approached, their home filled with the warmth of genuine celebration. Eileen joined them for the holidays, along with Ben and his family, Rivera, and several other friends who had formed their chosen extended family. The house resonated with laughter and conversation, the atmosphere of siege mentality long since replaced by open hospitality. On Christmas Eve, after guests had departed and Lily had gone to bed, Max stood at the living room window watching snow continue to fall in the glow of holiday lights. The security system hummed quietly in the background, still present, but no longer the dominating focus of his attention. He reflected on the journey of the past 3 years. From the desperate father who had overheard those devastating words outside his daughter's hospital room to the man he was now, still vigilant but no longer consumed by vengeance, still protective but increasingly focused on building rather than defending. The path had been brutal at times, requiring him to access the darkest corners of his capabilities. He had pursued justice with relentless determination, crossing lines when necessary, leveraging every resource and skill at his disposal to protect what mattered most. Yet through it all, he had maintained his core humanity, had refused to become what he fought against, had chosen selective mercy even when retribution was within his grasp. Most importantly, he had created a foundation for Lily to not just survive but thrive, to transform her trauma into purpose, her pain into compassion for others facing similar challenges. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight, marking the arrival of Christmas Day. Max turned from the window, taking in the peaceful home he had rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. The decorated tree with its twinkling lights, the stockings hung by the fireplace, the photographs on the mantel documenting their journey together. This, he realized, was the true victory, not the punishment of those who had wronged them, necessary though that had been. Not the systematic dismantling of criminal networks or the exposure of exploitation schemes. The victory lay in what remained when the battle ended, the capacity to find joy again, the ability to trust selectively but genuinely, the transformation of defensive walls into foundations for new growth. Max moved through the quiet house, checking locks and security monitors out of ingrained habit before heading upstairs. He paused at Lily's door, listening to her peaceful breathing before continuing to his own room. Tomorrow would bring celebration and new memories. The day after, more work with the foundation. The future stretched ahead with both challenges and possibilities, a journey they would continue to navigate together, stronger for having weathered the storm. As Max drifted toward sleep, he found himself genuinely at peace for the first time in years. Not the hyper-vigilant calm of the security expert or the focused intensity of the Avenger, but the authentic serenity of someone who had fought the necessary battles and emerged intact on the other side. They had paid the price of betrayal, had endured its consequences, and survived its aftermath. Now they were writing a new story, one built not on deception but on hard-won truth, not on manipulation but on authentic connection. A story of their own choosing, shaped by the darkness they had faced but not defined by it, informed by the past but oriented toward the future. A story still unfolding, page by page, day by day, the most valuable legacy Max could give his daughter and himself. The yin to all of this. Rivera studied him thoughtfully. You've changed, Max. When we first met, you were all cold calculation and righteous fury. Understandably so. Circumstances required it, Max replied, though he recognized the truth in her observation. The man who had dismantled Drew and Veronica's operation had been shaped by betrayal into something harder, more ruthless than his previous self. And now? Rivera asked. Max considered the question. Now I'm trying to balance vigilance with living, protecting Lily without suffocating her potential. It's an ongoing adjustment. You're doing well with it, Rivera assured him. Your daughter is thriving. That's the true victory. After Rivera left, Max stood at his office window, watching the summer crowds on the street below. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, unaware of the predators he'd spent 2 years hunting. Unaware that their insurance policies now contain protections specifically designed to prevent the exploitation Veronica and Drew had perfected. There was satisfaction in that anonymity, in battles won silently, threats neutralized without public knowledge of their existence. His military career had trained him for such invisible victories. That evening, Max and Lily had dinner with Eileen, celebrating the impending fellowship opportunity. Eileen had moved into a condo nearby after the crisis period ended, maintaining her independence while remaining close enough for regular family gatherings. To new beginnings, Eileen proposed, raising her glass. And to the remarkable young woman you've become, Lily. Lily blushed slightly at the praise. I couldn't have done it without both of you. Especially you, Dad. Max smiled, setting aside his habitual reserve. We did it together. As a family. The next morning dawned clear and bright as they loaded Lily's luggage into the car for the drive to Boston. The security arrangements were in place, but deliberately unobtrusive, protection without restriction. Remember, Max said as they approached the research center where Lily would be staying, weekly video calls, emergency protocols if needed, and no deviations from established check-in procedures. Lily finished with an affectionate eye roll. I remember, Dad. Comprehensive security briefing. Version 15. Max chuckled, acknowledging his overprotective tendencies. Just looking out for you, sweetheart. I know. Her expression grew serious. And I'm grateful. Not everyone has someone who would go to the lengths you did to keep them safe. The observation hung between them. The unspoken acknowledgement of just how far Max had gone to protect her, the moral gray areas he'd navigated, the relentless pursuit of those who had threatened her. You're worth it, he said simply. Always have been. Always will be. After helping Lily settle into her dormitory and meeting her program mentors, all thoroughly vetted in advance, Max prepared for the hardest part, saying goodbye. Though Boston was only a few hours' drive away, this marked the first significant separation since her recovery. I'll be fine, Dad, Lily assured him, recognizing his internal struggle. And so will you. Max embraced her, marveling at her emotional intelligence and maturity. I know you will. Call me when you get settled. The drive back to Connecticut gave Max time to reflect on their journey. From the devastating moment he'd overheard Veronica's cruel dismissal of their daughter's treatment to this point of new beginnings and expanding horizons. They had survived betrayal, illness, danger, and loss. More than survived, they had rebuilt, created something stronger and more authentic from the ruins of deception. As summer progressed, Lily thrived in the research program. Her weekly video calls filled with enthusiastic descriptions of laboratory breakthroughs and new friendships. Max gradually relaxed his hypervigilance, allowing himself to focus more on his expanding work with Interpol and less on potential threats that no longer materialized. In August, he traveled to Boston for the program's culmination ceremony, where Lily presented her research findings to an audience of medical professionals. Her project, focusing on psychological support systems for adolescents with life-threatening illnesses, received special recognition from the Foundation's board. "Your daughter has a remarkable future ahead of her," Dr. Cavendish told Max during the reception. "Her personal experience combined with her analytical mind gives her insights few researchers possess." "She's always been exceptional," Max agreed, watching Lily confidently discuss her methodology with a group of senior researchers. But her illness and what followed, it focused her potential in unexpected ways. "Adversity can do that," Cavendish observed. "The most resilient people often emerge from the greatest challenges." The conversation reminded Max of something Lily had written in her research paper, a passage that had particularly resonated with him. "Trauma fundamentally changes us. The key is not returning to who we were before, an impossibility, but intentionally shaping who we become after." They had both been changed by Veronica's betrayal and all that followed. The crucial difference lay in their conscious choices about how those changes would manifest, what they would preserve of their former selves, and what they would deliberately transform. On their drive home from Boston, with Lily's fellowship successfully completed, they stopped at a scenic overlook along the coast. The late summer sun gilded the Atlantic with golden light, waves crashing rhythmically against the rocky shore below. "I've been thinking," Lily said as they watched the timeless dance of sea and stone, "about what comes next." "The medical track seems to be working well for you," Max observed. "Dr. Patterson mentioned Johns Hopkins has early interest." "That's part of it," Lily agreed. "But I've been thinking bigger picture. About purpose." She turned to face him directly. "The foundation you helped establish with the settlement funds from the insurance companies, the one helping families with critically ill children navigate the financial and emotional challenges. What about it?" Max asked, though he suspected where this was heading. "I want to get more involved. Not just as the founder's daughter or a former patient, but actively. Developing programs, working with families directly." The Maxwell Donovan Foundation had emerged from the financial resolution of the case against Drew and Veronica's network. Rather than keep the substantial settlement funds, Max had established an organization dedicated to protecting vulnerable families from predatory practices while providing practical support during medical crises. "It would be challenging," Max cautioned. "Emotionally demanding, seeing families going through situations similar to ours." "I know," Lily acknowledged. "But who better to help them? We've been there. We know the terrain, medical, emotional, financial. We can guide them through it." Max studied his daughter with pride. The traumatized child he'd fought so desperately to protect had become a young woman determined to transform her pain into purpose. "We'll make it happen," he promised. Together, as autumn arrived, bringing brilliant foliage and cooler temperatures, Max found himself increasingly sharing responsibility for the foundation with Lily. Her perspective proved invaluable in developing new support programs, particularly those aimed at helping children cope with the psychological impacts of serious illness. They established a specialized division focusing on families where one parent was absent or unsupportive, addressing the specific challenges Lily had faced during her treatment. The program included legal advocacy, ensuring that medical decisions couldn't be undermined by conflicted interests or financial pressures. Through this work, Max observed another evolution in himself, a gradual shift from the defensive protector forged in crisis to a more proactive builder. The skills that had served him in dismantling threats now found new application in constructing safeguards for others. One October afternoon, as crimson leaves swirled across the foundation's courtyard, Max received a phone call from Teresa Mendoza. After providing crucial testimony against Drew and Veronica, she had relocated with her family to Arizona under new identities, establishing a successful nursing practice specializing in pediatric oncology. "I saw the Foundation's new advocacy program featured in a medical journal," she said, her accent still faintly detectable. "The work you're doing, it's extraordinary." "Thank you," Max replied, genuinely appreciative. "Your testimony made much of it possible." "I've been considering reaching out," Teresa continued. My experience with Drew's operation gives me insight that could help identify similar schemes. Perhaps I could consult on developing warning indicators for healthcare providers to recognize potential exploitation. The offer represented another unexpected positive outcome: the transformation of a former reluctant participant in criminal activity into an active force for prevention and protection. I think that would be incredibly valuable, Max agreed. Let me connect you with our program director to discuss the possibilities. As winter approached, bringing the second anniversary of Veronica's death, Max and Lily maintained their tradition of visiting her grave. They placed simple flowers beside the modest headstone, acknowledging the complicated legacy of a woman who had been both mother and threat, wife and betrayer. I still don't know exactly how to feel about her, Lily admitted as they stood in the quiet cemetery. Sometimes I'm angry, sometimes sad, sometimes I just feel nothing. That's natural, Max assured her. Some relationships defy simple emotions, especially when they involve profound betrayal alongside genuine connection. What about you? Lily asked. How do you feel about her now? Max considered the question carefully. I've accepted that parts of our relationship were real, even if the foundation was false. I've forgiven her not for her sake, but for my own peace. And I've acknowledged that without her, both the good and the terrible, you and I wouldn't be who we are today. Lily nodded, understanding the complex truth in his words. Do you think you'll ever trust someone that way again? Enough to remarry. The question surprised Max. He dated occasionally over the past year, but kept relationships deliberately casual and compartmentalized. I'm open to the possibility, he said honestly. But it would be different. More careful, more grounded in reality than idealization. I hope you do, Lily said softly. You deserve that kind of happiness. As they walked back to the car, snow began falling, large flakes drifting lazily from a pearl gray sky. They paused to watch the transformation of the landscape, the gradual covering of dead grass and bare trees with pristine white. It's beautiful, Lily observed. How something so cold can make everything look so perfect. Nature's fresh start, Max agreed. Covering the old, making way for new growth in the spring. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them. Their own winter, that dark period of betrayal, illness, and danger, had gradually yielded to renewal. Not erasing the past, but building upon it something more authentic and resilient. As Christmas approached, their home filled with the warmth of genuine celebration. Eileen joined them for the holidays, along with Ben and his family, Rivera, and several other friends who had formed their chosen extended family. The house resonated with laughter and conversation, the atmosphere of siege mentality long since replaced by open hospitality. On Christmas Eve, after guests had departed and Lily had gone to bed, Max stood at the living room window, watching snow continue to fall in the glow of holiday lights. The security system hummed quietly in the background, still present, but no longer the dominating focus of his attention. He reflected on the journey of the past 3 years. From the desperate father who had overheard those devastating words outside his daughter's hospital room to the man he was now, still vigilant, but no longer consumed by vengeance. Still protective, but increasingly focused on building rather than defending. The path had been brutal at times, requiring him to access the darkest corners of his capabilities. He had pursued justice with relentless determination, crossing lines when necessary, leveraging every resource and skill at his disposal to protect what mattered most. Yet through it all, he had maintained his core humanity, had refused to become what he fought against, had chosen selective mercy even when retribution was within his grasp. Most importantly, he had created a foundation for Lily to not just survive, but thrive, to transform her trauma into purpose, her pain into compassion for others facing similar challenges. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight, marking the arrival of Christmas Day. Max turned from the window, taking in the peaceful home he had rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. The decorated tree with its twinkling lights, the stockings hung by the fireplace, the photographs on the mantel documenting their journey together. This, he realized, was the true victory, not the punishment of those who had wronged them, necessary though that had been, not the systematic dismantling of criminal networks or the exposure of exploitation schemes. The victory lay in what remained when the battle ended, the capacity to find joy again, the ability to trust selectively but genuinely. the transformation of defensive walls into foundations for new growth. Max moved through the quiet house, checking locks and security monitors out of ingrained habit before heading upstairs. He paused at Lily's door, listening to her peaceful breathing before continuing to his own room. Tomorrow would bring celebration and new memories. The day after, more work with the foundation. The future stretched ahead with both challenges and possibilities, a journey they would continue to navigate together, stronger for having weathered the storm. As Max drifted toward sleep, he found himself genuinely at peace for the first time in years. Not the hyper-vigilant calm of the security expert or the focused intensity of the Avenger, but the authentic serenity of someone who had fought the necessary battles and emerged intact on the other side. They had paid the price of betrayal, had endured its consequences, and survived its aftermath. Now they were writing a new story, one built not on deception but on hard-won truth, not on manipulation but on authentic connection. A story of their own choosing, shaped by the darkness they had faced but not defined by it, informed by the past but oriented toward the future. A story still unfolding, page by page, day by day, the most valuable legacy Max could give his daughter and himself. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.